Well, hello there. So, welcome to a world without Pixelborn. Uh, we don't have a digital medium to practice, and trying out deck ideas is tough without, free cards to try it with. And, making a deck can be very expensive. I mean, the best deck in the format is at least about $500 USD. And that's one way to play the game. It's a meta deck, and that's how it is. And not all meta decks are $500. They can go much lower. About $100 is probably what you're really looking at when it comes to some of the more meta decks, because I believe one of the other meta decks is Amethyst, and I think that's about $100 roughly. However, the other way to play this game is now going to be in person. You're going to be going to physical events. You're at your local game store, right? So they're going to be having weekly or bi-weekly Lorcana leagues, and that's where you're going to be playing your game. And as an experienced TCG player, I know that these leagues can often be less fun just jumping in completely empty-handed. You're going to be playing against a lot of players who have been playing the game for a while, and they have decks that are maybe not meta, but they are more tuned than, say, jumping in with a pre-constructed starter deck and a couple packs to upgrade it, right? Honestly, that's never really the best way to play a constructed format, especially when it comes to like a standard, right? Like standard constructed. The best way, honestly, is to make a budget deck that can do things, that has a good run against at least one of the better meta decks at the current time of the format, that doesn't break the bank. And I'm going to give you 4 options here in this video under $40. And basically that's the cost of, one starter deck, maybe 2, depending on how cheap you're getting them. I think they're like $17, plus a pack or 2. And that's just better. So investing in some singles that will be good in the future, because a lot of these do use singles that, you'll put into better decks, including decks that are in the meta. And it'll give you more of a fighting chance and a little bit more of a fair shake of what the actual gameplay of this thing will be like in a reasonable manner. And for all of these decks, they all have at least one good matchup in the meta that I would say is against aggro, against green steel, against blue steel, against ruby sapphire, or red blue. And these won't be, they're not going to dominate a meta. They're not going to be super unfun for other people to play against. And, you can get 1 or 2 of these together and just have some variety, even if it's just kitchen table gameplay. A lot of these decks are roughly the same power level. They have different playstyles, so I'll explain them as we go along this video. And I will just get us started with the very first one on my list here. I've titled it Budget Queen, and it actually has a theme. Lots of queens. So there's a queen there. There is I don't think she's a queen yet, but Queen of Hearts, and she does become a queen here, listed as the Floodborn villain and queen. And then you have other cards like the queen commanding presence. Got the Queen of Hearts. You've got, where did it go here? I had something else here. There's the other Queen of Hearts. And you've got your staples like Brawl and Bare Necessities. Some of these cards are a little more expensive than the others, like the Lady Tremaines, but this deck itself is only $27 as of making this video. So it's going to probably fluctuate between, $20, $25 and $29 when you're looking at this in a couple weeks, maybe. But it's a very simple. This is a mid-range aggro deck. Little less on the aggro, more on the mid-range, because a lot of these cards here don't quest for a lot. What you're really doing is you're playing the game and getting lore where you can, playing cards when you can, and your removal suite is more or less the cards, your characters. There is Brawl in there, because Brawl for a budget deck is your way to deal with Diablo. Now, this list is actually probably better against an aggro list in general. You have a lot of cards that deal with it, and you have a lot of value. You have good removal. You have strong cards that can't be removed very easily in the form of 4 Chernobyls. You're not going to fall behind to a Flynn Rider combo very easily. You do have some big cards in here, especially like this queen that can shift out for 4/3. You have a lot of ways to trade positively with the queen. You have the Lady Tremaine. You've got some card draw with the Queen of Hearts. You've got Pongo. You've got Ramp with Doc. You've got Ramp with Gaston. And then generally when you're holding the board off, you do have this Queen of Hearts here. And this one reads, whenever character quests, or this character quest, sorry, your other villain characters get +1 quest. Which means, you know, suddenly your Lady Tremaine here is doing 3. Your other queen here is doing 3. Queen of Hearts actually is doing 2, and Chernobog's doing 4. So you're controlling the board early game, and then towards the mid game, you're starting to work towards your win condition to the point where you can eventually throw down this Queen of Hearts and, you know, maybe just make a big quest for 9 in one turn, right? It's a good way to do things, and it's fairly inexpensive cards played. You have some minor synergies here with like Doc and Gaston, allowing you to play some of these bigger cards cheaper. You also have this Lady Tremaine, which will allow you to play your other Lady Tremaine on 4. So you can go, you know, Lady Tremaine on 2, and then or 3, and then on your 4, do your big Tremaine and actually get something. Another one you have here that is probably underrated but very useful for this format is Pegasus, Flying Steed. He's a 3/1 evasive, and right now that's actually very strong against a lot of the cards that you're going to be facing in the meta, like Diablo for the most part. Like Diablo's a very good one. Pegasus, the green Pegasus, the 3/3 with evasive. The Peter Pan Shadow Chaser, Shadow Finder. You know, he's a purple one. And there's just a lot of tools in this deck that will allow you to keep up with things. So from here, yeah, I'd say this is probably one that you want to, if you have a lot of aggro and mid-range in your LGS. It's not going to do very well against decks, I'd say, like Ruby Sapphire. They're probably going to do very good against you. And your matchup against Green Steel is probably going to be a little tougher. They have a lot of spot removal. They have things like Grab Your Swords as well, Along Came Zeus. But you will be able to keep up with them and take wins too. So it's not the worst. And then it's, again, this is also the cheapest of the decks I'm showing you. $27. It's really hard to beat that. Otherwise, this is probably your best all-around deck. It's not gonna be dominating your meta though, alright? Move to the next one. Here we are. This one here. This is the Emerald Amethyst Budget Floodborn. Let me just open this up again real quickly. So this is a Bucky List based on the Floodborn mechanic. It's, again, not super expensive, about $28, and this is probably one of the more powerful decks that I'm bringing to you today, simply by virtue of it being a Bucky list. So you have Bucky. This is the scourge of the meta. Everyone hates it. People hate it more than Diablo. And for good reason. It has ward, it comes down early, and whenever you play a Floodborn character, your opponent has to discard a card. You basically have, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 major Floodborn characters that come out fairly early because they all have a shift target, including the Flynn Rider. So you can actually get these guys out as early as turn 3, or turn 2 really, but turn 3 is what you're looking at. It has turn 1 plays. In the idea of Pegasus, which is kind of your nut draw on this, is going Pegasus into Bucky, into Pegasus, Cloud Racer to make them discard a card. You have another card in here that is also with the Floodborn synergy, Blue Fairy, which allows this deck to keep up against the Blue Steel list if they don't remove it, because you are discarding one of their cards and getting one of your cards back if you've got the Blue Fairy. It's also evasive, so it has, you know, it gets you some lore. You've got Flynn Rider here, just good for gaining lore. You've got Bell, and the Bell line is actually very interesting because you take a lot more damage than you would normally think. Especially when you have, like, the Flynn Rider out in the field. Someone will attack into it, kill it, but they'll leave a damage counter on something maybe you don't, like, they're trying to spread it out or something. It does work. It's not guaranteed, but same thing with the Blue Fairy, so you're using Bell to move your damage counters around and kind of get things the way you want them. Likewise, you have this Peter Pan, who is Russian evasive. A 2/3 body means, you know, you can crash into a 2/2, deal 2 damage to it, and he'll still live, and then you can actually save it with this Bell and gain some lore off of it, or not gain some lore, but you know, move some damage around, and also, you know, utilize your Bucky and Blue Fairy combo. Other than that, because your top end is Pegasus, Bell, and Yzma, you have 4 we don't talk about Brunos, which is pretty excellent removal for this list. Likewise with Yzma Scary beyond all reason. And, you know, this gives your opponent 2 cards if you knock one of their cards out, but it can also be used on your own characters, and you can, like, you know, play down, let's say, a Pegasus 1, and, you know, get rid of it right away, and get yourself 2 cards if you need to draw into something, maybe like a creature, or, sorry, character that you want to have lore on. A lot of the cards do gain at least 2 lore, which is pretty fantastic, honestly. You don't have a lot except for, like, your setup ones that don't gain you more, or that don't gain you, like, more than 1. And then, like, you know, Dolores Madrigal, Maleficent, they're what I call cantrips, or in the Magic the Gathering terms as a cantrip. So your card draw isn't terrible in this deck. You have a lot of options to go about. Friends on the other side gives you 2 cards. It's pretty standard, right? But a lot of cards in here are meta. Flynn Rider is in the green steel list, so he's pretty useful. Pegasus is another card. Yzma's actually run in 1 or 2 ofs in decks now. Bell Accomplished Mystic has been seen play. Maleficent's out there always. You got your Ursula Deceivers. You got your Bucky and your Blue Fairy. Like, all of these cards are good in general on their own. I'd say maybe the exception is Dolores Madrigal, but a 4-cost 3/3 that draws a card potentially and quests for 2 is pretty good overall. So I really don't think this is a terrible list, and I do think it has a lot of options for playing into the meta. It has a decent matchup against green steel. However, you're really wanting to play against something like red blue. Red, blue, and aggro. This kind of deals with mid-range very well. A deck like the Queens that I showed you earlier would have more issue against a deck like this. This deck has a lot of ward, so it stops a lot of targeting, but it also gains lore pretty quickly on its own while being able to apply pressure, and has really consistent card advantage. You also have cards like We Don't Talk About Bruno that, you know, if they were to shift onto something, you can get rid of it by putting both cards in their hand, right? So, options. It's another mid-range playstyle. Definitely more of a kind of tempo mid-range. So it's another way to play again. Moving on. This one is probably my favorite of them, but I am a Blue Steel stan. I love Blue Steel. I think Blue Steel is very, very good. And this is just the best parts of Blue Steel without some of the other better parts of Blue Steel. The great thing about Blue Steel is there are cards that you can get by without and still make a solid mid-range control deck. Simba Fighting Prince, excellent card. This deck is, you know, focuses on getting your 2 big cards out. It's your Gastons and your Simba's Fighting Princes. They do whatever they need to, you do whatever you need to in terms of ramping, and you get these cards out, and you just kind of hope to get there, and you control the board as best you can. I mean, ward is a very, very tough thing for this list to deal with, which is why you do have Grab Your Swords. But otherwise, you're looking at some combos with, like, Mr. Smee here. You have, there's no Cogsworth because he's actually priced out of this deck to be in the $40 range. However, you have an alternative, which is this Gumbo Pot. And you can Mr. Smee quest, have him take damage, and then use the Gumbo Pot to heal him. It's cute. It works though. All right. You have Mickey Mouse, you have One Jump Ahead, and you have the Great Stone Dragon as ramp. And those will actually get you very far in a deck with 28 creatures. And basically, you really want to just start chaining these Gastons, these Simba's Fighting Prince, because this deck is, in Magic terms, spot removal, right? So you're going Smash, you're going Ba-Boom, you got Grab Your Swords, you've got Let It Go for your big targets that you can't just shoot down. Other than that, you have your Hiram Flaversham, staple meta card, Fortisphere, Popsicle, things that you would use in decks, right? Even the Grammatala, the Keeper of Stories, she's also another staple. Mr. Smee is, and other blue steel decks are running more of these beat hard-headeds. Overall, this is a control list. I'd say a control mid-range list, because you're just kind of controlling the board, you're playing lots of card draw, and you're playing methodically and slow and just building up your inkwell without losing cards, and hoping you can make the right trades, and hoping you can remove the right pieces. There's obvious upgrades you would want in here: Cogsworth, Tinkerbell, Beast, Robin Hood. But for something that's under $40, $38 as of making this video, it does almost everything that a blue steel deck wants to do without being nearly as expensive as it could be. I'd say your average is probably going to be closer to a $200 deck. So for $40, this is going to get you pretty far. This deck still matches up incredibly well to green steel. Like, if you want to beat green steel in your meta, play a deck like this. It doesn't matter that you're not running some of the better cards. You will get there with Gaston. You will get there with Simba. Trust. You don't even need the Lucky Dime. You will control the board. They'll be in top deck mode. You'll have so much removal for all of their things, including if they have a Hidden Cove. You really don't care about that in this deck. You've got your card draw and you've got your big bodies. And that's all you need. Big bodies, card draw, removal. Very simple. Gotta love it. It's a standard mid-range control deck. And let's go next. The very last. This is what I would call your fast deck, your Amber Amethyst budget aggro. This is the deck that is really geared to take out Blue Steel and Ruby Sapphire. It's fast cards. You got your Magic Broom, your Churnabox Followers. You use those to just cycle your card advantage, or not card advantage, just cycle your cards, right? You play them down like the Churnabox Followers, you quest, get your one lore, get a card. Pretty simple. Magic Broom, same idea, you play it down, next turn you quest with it. Play like a Wendy Darling, draw some, and draw a card, right? Keep your hand, the cards flowing in your hand. Keep your ink going, because you are trying to get someplace about 6 ink with this deck. It's a tall order, but you're building up there slowly. Perdita basically covers half of your deck. Gets you everything you really need. Another option is to put in something like Bare Necessity to protect you from board wipes or like Grab Your Swords. But otherwise, this deck is simple. You're just trying to get down like a Piglet, a Wendy Darling, questing out as best you can. You've got a Pinocchio, a couple of them, because you don't really want all these uninkables. You got Merlin Crab to make your small guys trade up. You've got a Merlin Goat to win you the, just get you that last little bit over the finish line. Peter Pan Shadowfinder, this is again another staple card that you're gonna be using to take out Diablos effectively. You can do a Peter Pan to do that, and then the next turn, if you need to go like Merlin to make it more powerful. As such, you really aren't worried too much about things like Hidden Cove or even Queen's Castle. You can deal with them fairly quickly. You have a Pinocchio talkative puppet. This guy takes care of cards that, you need to take out like Flynn Rider. Other than that, it's just card draw. Jiminy Cricket's actually a really cheap option because you do have 4 Pinocchios in here. Often the time he is ink, but he is also a 1/2 evasive, so he kind of just gets you there. Really not a whole lot to say about this deck. This deck is, you want to play cards out in a smart manner and quest to get there, and then when you get a chance, it's kind of holding a card in hand, getting Perdita down, playing her. She's a combo onto herself, especially if you have a Piglet in the graveyard. You can go Perdita, bring a Piglet back, pass the turn, play a card from your hand, or when you quest with Perdita, you bring another card into the battlefield, maybe like a Chernobog's Followers or a Magic Broom, quest with your Piglet, and then, you know, maybe you'll play another card and sacrifice the Magic Broom, draw a card. And you're just going to cycle that way. This deck builds up Chernobogs very quickly, so the only thing you really want to not do is try not to get both discarded, right? Because if both get discarded, your Chernobogs are gone. And that's really the only threat you have against discard decks. Oh, sorry, it's like the only threat that discard decks really have against that part of the combo. And otherwise, you're racing. This is no brain, no aim, just quest and get there, the deck. And I think it's pretty fun. But that's really it. These decks are super simple, super fun, and they do have enough game against the current meta, the 3 I listed, or even 4 I listed, the fast aggro, the green steel, the blue steel, and the red blue. And if you're looking for a deck that takes care of one of these, at least one of those, these are going to be the decks for you. I will leave all of the links in the description. Like and subscribe if this helped you out. And if you have any questions whatsoever, let me know. I also, I'm streaming on Twitch and talking Lorcana there too. But that's it for now. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I will see you in the next one.